This is the first video looking at topic 2, which is about demand. Okay, now think about what demand is first of all. Customers are an economic agent. Okay, we're households and we demand goods and services. And we demand goods and services to basically meet our wants and needs, in other words, to achieve or improve our economic welfare. So when we demand something, we do it for satisfaction. Okay, something that economists call utility. Okay, so if you're prepared to pay more for something, then it's because you deem it to give you a high utility or a high satisfaction. Okay, now what we assume is that customers are rational. Okay, now all rational means that you will demand the things that you think give you the most satisfaction. Okay, now let's take a really simple example of demand. Now when we draw a demand curve, we have price on the vertical axis and quantity on the horizontal axis. So the demand curve basically looks like this, and we'll call it D1. Okay, now let's just take an example of somebody demanding computer games. Okay, now let's imagine if the price of the computer game was £50. Then over the course of a year, somebody would buy 2 computer games. In other words, they would spend £100 on computer games. Okay, now this is the maximum price that somebody's been prepared to pay for these 2 goods. It's what they rationally think these 2 games are worth for them. If the price was to fall, let's say to £25, then this person would decide to buy more computer games. Okay, it's gone from 2 to 5. They're buying 3 more. And the reason is because at that new lower price, they think they can gain satisfaction from buying more. Okay, now what you'll see along this line is downward sloping. All that basically means is the lower the price, the higher the demand. And that's quite logical, isn't it? People become more willing and able to buy at low prices compared to at high prices. It's rational. Okay, let's take an example. If I go back to the £50 price tag, this person wouldn't have bought the 3rd computer game because of the high price. It's just not worth it to them. They don't deem there to be enough satisfaction or utility at that high price. Now when the price falls, we have an extension in demand. All that basically means is that the price falls, people become more willing and able to buy. If the price was to increase, then we get a contraction in demand. All that basically means is the price increases, people become less willing and able to buy the product. In other words, at the new high price, they don't deem it to be worth that particular price. Now when we draw a demand curve, what we assume is ceteris paribus. And all that basically means is that we're holding everything else constant. There are a whole host of reasons why somebody will demand something. It could be a change in taste, it could be the weather, it could be your income, it could be how wealthy you feel at any moment in time, it could be who you're seeing, who your friends are, influences from the TV or newspapers or the internet. There are lots of different things that will affect your demand. This demand curve that I've drawn here, this D1, what I'm assuming is the only thing that is changing is the price. We hold everything else constant. Okay, so when the price falls, you'll buy more. When the price increases, you'll buy less of it. Contractions and extensions in demand. Now, one other thing I want to mention at this point as well is the idea of diminishing marginal utility. Okay, now diminishing, well, you should be comfortable the word diminishing means it's falling. It's becoming less than what it was before. Marginal is the addition to. Okay, so let's take an example. If I've drunk 3 bottles of water today, If I then drink another one, the marginal is the additional water. So if I go from 3 to 4 bottles of water, the marginal is 1 more bottle of water. If I read 10 books last month, if I then go and by the end of this month read 15 books in total, my marginal is 5. I've read another 5 books. And utility, all it really means is satisfaction, how happy you are with something. Now look at demand curve. Okay? And over time, you become less willing and able to buy things as you buy more of it. Let's take a different example. Okay, let's imagine we're looking at somebody's demand for chocolate bars. Okay, now for one chocolate bar, somebody might be prepared to pay £1, 100 pence to buy a chocolate bar. But the demand curve will go down like this. The first chocolate bar, you value at 100 pence. The maximum price you're willing and able to pay for is 100 pence. For the second one, it gives you less satisfaction than what the first one did. So for the second one, you might only be willing to pay 80p. For the third one, you might value even less. That's 60p. And this is the same for most things. The second cup of tea never tastes as good as the first cup of tea. When I come to work in the morning, the first cup of coffee is always the best one. It's worth more to me than what that second, third, fourth, fifth one will be, for example. Okay, so the more you have of something, the less value you tend to place on it. You've got the most of your satisfaction from consuming the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units of that particular product. Okay, so let's just recap what we've got then so far. Let's draw these axes fairly quickly. We've got price and quantity on the axis, and demand is downward sloping. The lower the price, the higher the demand. The higher the price, the lower the demand. Okay, so if we had a fairly low price, we'd have a high demand. But then people are rational. If the price was to increase, their demand would contract. In other words, they place lower value. I beg your pardon. They don't deem the product to be worth that new higher price, so they demand less of it. Other way around. Again, if we start at P1, Q1, if the price was to fall, then we'll have an extension in demand. This time, there are units of output which you now deem to be worth their price at the new lower price. Okay, for an example, I took my daughter at the weekend to buy some Lego games for the Nintendo Wii. Went in expecting to pay £10, and for £10 I was going to buy a 1 game. We walked out the shop with 3 Lego games because the price was £5 per game. Okay, so at the low price we deemed them to be worth that lower price. That was me being a rational consumer. Now to remember that we've drawn these curves on the assumption of ceteris paribus. The only thing changing on these curves is a change in the price. Everything else has been held constant.